Welcome to the Oxygen Alliance YouTube channel, where we bring you videos on installation, maintenance, and various trainings on oxygen equipment and devices. If you have comments and or questions, drop them in the comment section below or write to us info@oxygenalliance.org. Remember to like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell.
Thank you so much for joining today's episode of Oxygen Talk, brought to you by Oxygen Alliance. My name is Lloyd Kaembe, and I'm an engineer for the Oxygen Alliance, and I'll be your host today. For those that are new, the Oxygen Talk is a virtual meeting that the Oxygen Alliance hosts every second Thursday of the month from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Central African Time. So we discuss various oxygen-related topics. Today, engineers from the OpenO2 will share valuable knowledge on medical oxygen cylinders, covering their application, handling, and safety. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation, so just take notes. Once again, my name is Lloyd Kaembe, and I'm hosting the call from Lilongwe, Malawi. And I would like to know where you are joining us from by typing your location in the chat. And if you want to be added to our email list and get notifications of upcoming events by the Oxygen Alliance, type in your email in the chat. So without further ado, I will now hand over the stage to Elizabeth Tabalaba, who will introduce us the OpenO2 team and start the presentation. So over to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Lloyd. Good day, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Tabalaba, a biomedical engineer from the OpenO2, and here with me are my colleagues, Julius Timpapa, Brenda Luhanga, and Gulak Banda. So today we're going to present to you on the topic oxygen cylinders application, handling, and safety. Without wasting much of your time, let's start. So in this presentation, we're going to talk about the introduction to the cylinders, cylinder type and sizes, connections to cylinders, their uses, care and maintenance. We're going to talk about the filling station, storage, transportation, as well as safety. So one may ask to say, what is a cylinder? Actually, a cylinder is just an oxygen refillable cylindrical storage vessel used to store and transport oxygen in compressed gas form. So as you can see in the picture here, this is a clear presentation of what an oxygen cylinder is, which was taken from one of our health facilities in Kamuzu Central Hospital. So these medical gas cylinders are critical tools in healthcare settings. They provide life-saving gases such as oxygen and various therapeutic gases. So they really play a vital role in patient care and are used in a wide range of medical applications. So next, I will take you through different cylinder types and sizes. So in terms of the cylinder types, we have 3 of them, ranging from type 1, 2 to 3. So type 1 cylinders are made of steel or aluminum. So these ones mostly are heavy in weight, and in terms of price, they're really low in cost. And they can carry up to the pressures of reaching almost to 150 bars. So for this property, they are suitable for static hospital or home care applications where you don't have to be moving them here and there since they're heavy, but once they're in one place, you're good to use them. Looking into the type 2, this one is actually made of aluminum and it is hoop wrapped with carbon fiber. With this property, it is made to be lighter than type 1. So it can contain pressures of up to 207 bars, and it is suitable for an application whereby now cost is prioritized above low weight and high pressures. And lastly, looking into the type 3 ones, these ones are lined up with a thin aluminum, which then it comes next with a full wrap of carbon composite. So these materials make it to be even more lighter by 30% comparing to type 2. And they can be filled up to higher pressures of up to 300 bars. So these properties makes type 3 cylinders to be great candidates for application used in medical oxygen cylinders in ambulances or for home oxygen therapy. So you know how we need to move from the refilling station maybe into the ambulance. So it is able for us to carry it because they are lightweight. So these ones are also the ones that are mostly used in the healthy facilities. Moving on, I will talk about the sizes of these cylinders. So oxygen cylinders come in various sizes, each with its own capacity and level of portability. So the choice of a cylinder size depends on the specific medical application and also the patient's needs. And here are some of the common cylinder sizes along with their capacities and portability. So as we can see from our table, we are having different naming system of these cylinders from A, B, C, D, J, D, E, and H. Actually, these ones are order names, but now they're also known by these names like M4, M6, M7, M9, to the very last one, which is the M25. And for example, let's just look into these cylinders. We're starting with the smaller ones. So for the A type, which is also the M4, this one has weight of 0.7 kg, which is so portable. Actually, it can be compared to a bottle of wine. So it is portable and has a capacity of 113 liters. But now, this is now inputted at a pressure of 220 psi. And if we can look at the very last one, which is M250 or type H, this one has a height of 132 centimeters, which is big enough to accommodate a lot of gas. And it weighs of almost 51 kg and its capacity is 7,080 liters. But also this one is still at 2,200 psi. So these cylinders have different CGR numbers, of which, as we can see, the smaller ones till the cylinder E, they go by the 870 CGA, while from the rest of the remaining ones to H, they're going for the 540 CGA. Moving forward, let's look at the color coding of these cylinders. So the international standard for the color coding of the gas cylinder is ISO 32 1977 gas cylinders for medical use especially. So these markings, they bring in an identification of the content. So according to the ISO standard of oxygen, it should be labeled as white. But then if we can go back to the previous slide, we'll literally to the previous slide, please. We literally appreciate that we're having now a different color. If we can look at the shoulder of the cylinder, it is having a green. So let's just have these colors differentiated according to the ISO color code and the US color code convention. So as we saw in the previous slide that it is having a green shoulder, which is literally shown that it is a representation of the US color code convention, while the ISO one is represented by white. And moving ahead to get to know other gases that we use in the hospital or medical gases, we're having gases like oxygen, which is represented by black color in both conventions. And also we have nitrous oxide presented by blue. But then if we can look at medical air, now they're different. For the ISO color code, we have black and white, while by the US color code, we have a yellow shoulder. So let's go ahead and understand the cylinder running durations of which the cylinders can provide an oxygen gas to the patient. So This one actually, it matters with the capacity of the cylinder. For example, we can't expect cylinder A to be running at the same duration as cylinder H. So I'll just take you a little mathematics of how you can know and understand the running duration of these cylinders. So let's take it at the nominal level flow rate of 2 liters per minute. So for us to get to the running duration, what we need to do is to get the cylinder capacity, which is in liters, and then we divide it by the flow rate. The flow rate is the now 2 liters per minute. So if we can do the calculation, we're able to see that the very small cylinder can run up to 1 hour, and the very big cylinders type M250, actually these ones can run up to 54 hours. So with these properties, we're able to choose which cylinder to use specifically. From now on, I'll invite my colleague J.S. Chimpapa to take us through the connections to cylinders. Over to you, J.S.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth Tapalapa. My name is Julius Chimpapa, a biomedical engineer for OpenO2, and I'll take you through the connection types that we use when we want to connect our cylinders to either a patient or to another equipment where they are intended to be used. So the cylinders that we have specific connection types which are there in order to ensure the safety and accurate oxygen delivery to the patients and the equipment wherever they are connected. So there are plenty of connection types that are used, but the most common ones are the pin index system and the bonus connection, which are our focus today. And moving on, starting with the pin index system. So this one consists of set of pins which are there and they are connected by aligning them to the corresponding holes that are available on the cylinder valve. So what happens is that the connector that you have, either it's a regulator or whatever you want to connect to the cylinder, needs to have the number of pins which is the same to the number of holes available in the cylinder valve, as well as the alignment has also to be the same. So you have to make sure that whatever you want to connect is matching with the pins that are available on the cylinder that you are connecting. So as you can see on the picture, the pins that are on the connector here, which is the regulator, are aligning with the hose available on the oxygen cylinder. And as you can see on the top, there's a hole. This is where oxygen gets out of the cylinder into the regulator. And moving on, continuing with the pin index system, as I already pointed out, it is known that the oxygen cylinders use the pin index system of 2 and 5, and the other gases have also their own arrangement of pins. As for example, with nitrous oxide here, it's on 3 and 5. So what one has to do whenever he wants to connect something to the cylinder, he has to make sure that that connector has also the same pin arrangement. So the pins have to be on position 2 and 5 so that they can align correctly with the cylinder where you want to connect them. This is done to avoid connecting a long cylinder to a long equipment, or to avoid giving patients long gases, which can be done by connecting the long cylinder to the patient who is in need of oxygen. And moving on, we'll look at the bonus connection system. So these ones, as you can see from the picture, the connectors look like the nose of a bull. And unlike the pin index system, these ones use threads. So what happens is that on the cylinder where you want to connect these things, their hose where these threads are threaded in. So you have to make sure that the connectors are of good size, and they also have the matching threads so that you don't force the connectors in. And this is also done for the safety of the patients, whereby we avoid giving them long gas. And also we would like to have tight connections, whereby we use connectors that fit into the holes that are available on the cylinder. And moving on, I will now explain the cylinder regulators, that is the regulating equipments that are used on the cylinders. As we know that the gases which is inside the cylinders has high pressure, so there is a mechanism that is used to regulate that pressure. So the regulators are just devices that are used to control the pressure, the high pressure of the compressed gas inside the cylinder to a level, a more usable level, which can be used to the patients or wherever the gas is intended to be used. So these regulators come in various types and models to suit the size of the cylinder that you want to use, gas type, as well as the application where you intend to use the cylinder for. And moving forward, so we can categorize these regulators into two, as those that are used on cylinders that are connected directly to the patient, or those for the cylinders that have to be used for pipeline gases system. So for the cylinders that are used directly on the patient, their regulators mainly are used for a single oxygen gas cylinder, and these ones provide precise control of oxygen flow rate to ensure accurate delivery to the patient. So as you can see this from the picture, this one has a humidifier bottle. We know all that how what the humidifier bottle is used for, and these ones can even be found on oxygen concentrators. And there also a flow meter on top, which is used to regulate the flow of gas that you want to provide to the patient. So these ones are portable, so they can be taken wherever you want to use, which is not the case with the regulators for oxygen, which is for the pipeline system. So moving on, the pipeline oxygen regulation use this kind of regulator shown on the picture. So as seen here, we have two pressure gauges for this, and this is so because these pressure gauges display different values of pressures. There's one regulator which is used to display high pressure, which is for the gas inside the cylinder, and the other one, it displays the gas which is out of the cylinder. So one has to check if the values that are displayed on the pressure gauge align with what is supposed to be used, or what the cylinder has to carry in terms of the pressure. So these ones are not portable, so they are intended for the cylinders that are stationary, and they are used on a centralized system. As we have said, for example, the pipeline system, where you just want to distribute gas using pipes, unlike where you want to use a cylinder. So this one is used for many cylinders, and it may have many outlets based on where you want to distribute the gas. And now moving on, I will now show you the picture which was taken from Central Hospital, Kamuzu Central Hospital, which is the gas pipeline system. And as seen here, the two pressure gauges, which are side by side, to show are indicating the pressure of cylinders. So the pipes that are indicated, they are going to the cylinders, and the middle one is indicating the gas, the pressure of the gas which is coming out of the cylinder. So one has to take note of the pressures for the gas inside the cylinder as well as for the gas that is outside the cylinder. And now moving on, let's take a look at some of the parts of the regulators. So looking at the picture on the right, we can see that there are two regulators, and the regulator for the gas inside the cylinder is called the cylinder pressure gauge, while the gauge for the gas outside, which is the regulated gas, is called delivery pressure gauge. And there is also a regulator nut which is used to tighten the connection of the gas, and closer to the regulator nut, there's a cylinder valve which is used for opening or closing the cylinder. So this one will let you to transfer gas from the cylinder to the regulator, or it can close to avoid the gas moving from the cylinder. And also usually cylinders have CJ numbers. These are numbers that indicates the fittings and the threads that have to be used. So the cylinder will have the CJ number, and also the connector is also going to have the CJ number. So if you want to do the connections, you have to match these numbers to make sure that you are using the correct connector on a correct cylinder. And also we have the delivery valve, which is the one that is used to open the piping to transfer gas to where that is about to be used. And the regulator dial is used to control the pressure for the gas. And moving on, I'll explain to you the oxygen cylinder hard stamp. So the hard stamp, these are markings or writings that are found on the shoulder of a cylinder. So these markings or writings carry very important information about the cylinder and the gas that is supposed to be used for that particular cylinder. So before using a cylinder, one has to check whatever is written on the cylinder to make sure that he or she has enough information about the cylinder. So among the information that these markings carry include the type of gas that has to be used for the cylinder, the pressure rating, the serial number, the size of the cylinder, date of manufacture, the information of the manufacturer, as well as the valve type, and etc. etc. So on the next slide, we'll discuss some of these information that are found on this shoulder of the cylinder or the hard stamp. So as shown here, we have the front view of the cylinder, which is shown on the left, and the top view, which is shown on the right. And as shown by the arrows, there's a lot of information concerning the cylinder and the gas that the cylinder has to carry. For example, there's the empty weight of a cylinder, that is the weight of a cylinder before it is filled with anything. And there's also the working pressure, which is the pressure that the cylinder can support. And there's also a lot of information like the manufacturer certification, the serial numbers, we have the date when the cylinder was tested. And so before using the cylinder, you have to make sure that you are fully aware of whatever is written in here. And sometimes it is also important to contact the manufacturers of this for other information, so that you avoid using wrong gas on a wrong cylinder, because this is very dangerous and may cost someone's life or even property. And this is what I had for you, and my colleague Brenda Ruhanga will take you through the application of the cylinders, as well as the care and maintenance that has to be rendered to the cylinders. Over to you, Brenda Ruhanga.
Thank you very much, Julius Chinhapa. My name is Brenda Ruhanga, as he has mentioned, and I will take you through the cylinder uses and some of their applications. So oxygen cylinders are an oxygen source in various medical settings, and these are some of their use in a medical context. So they are used in manifold systems, at the bedside of patients. They're also used in infant incubators, anesthesia machines, and ventilators. Moving on. So, in Manford systems, the cylinders are used to produce oxygen, to supply oxygen from a central oxygen supply, and it is then from this Manford that the oxygen is piped to various patient rooms and beds through a network of pipes and valves. So from there, each patient's oxygen flow can be controlled independently at the bedside, ensuring that there is precise oxygen flow according to their needs. The oxygen cylinders are also commonly used in hospitals, clinics, and even at home, placed at the bedside of the patient. These provide a convenient and portable source of oxygen for patients with respiratory conditions who need supplemental oxygen to maintain adequate blood oxygen levels. Moving on. Oxygen cylinders are also integrated into the infant incubator system to serve as an oxygen source. This ensures that there is proper oxygen levels for the infant's development and to cater for their respiratory needs. These oxygen cylinders are also used in anesthesia machines as a source of continuous and reliable source of oxygen for the machine during surgery. The gas also acts as a driving gas. So for patients with respiratory conditions who need supplemental oxygen to maintain their blood and adequate oxygen supply. Oxygen cylinders are also incorporated in ventilators to provide the required oxygen and pressure to the patient's lungs. The oxygen cylinders also act as a source of driving gas during inspiration. So the oxygen cylinder provides, in this case, a pressurized gas which is routed to the space between the inside wall of the plastic chamber and the bellows, increasing the pressure in the chamber, especially for those anesthesia machine ventilators that are not electrically driven. I also continue to give you the proper care and maintenance for oxygen cylinders. So this can be scheduled to be cared for and routinely maintained on a daily or weekly basis. You can also provide preventive maintenance periodically, especially by the gas suppliers or the engineers in charge. Continuing. On the daily maintenance, cleaning and visual checks can be conducted. So you need to ensure that the delivery tubes and the masks are disinfected. You can also disinfect, clean, and refill the water bottles with clean water. You can check if all the parts are fitted tightly and correctly, especially for those oxygen cylinders that are used at the bedside and not at the Manford. On a weekly basis, you can also clean the cylinders, the valves, and the flow meter with a damp cloth. For the visual checks, you can check for leakages or any reduction in pressure. There are also different issues that can be associated with oxygen cylinders. For instance, sometimes there is no oxygen flow. This can be mainly because the oxygen cylinder that is in use is empty. So there is a need to replace the cylinder with a refilled cylinder. Sometimes the flow meter knob or the cylinder flow valve is closed. So you need to ensure that all the valves are open and then check if the meter registers flow. It can also be due to a faulty regulator, which you need now to close all the valves and replace it with a new one. Sometimes there can be leakages from the cylinder or the flow meter. This can be due to that the cylinder is not connected to the pressure regulator properly. So you need to make sure that all the fittings are tightened up. Sometimes this can be caused due to a faulty or missing washer between the regulator and the cylinder. So you need to regularly replace the washers. It can also be due to flow meter seal that is damaged or it's loose. So you need to regularly replace the sealing washer and then realign the flow meters. Sometimes the cylinder itself is faulty, so you need to label the faulty cylinder, take the appropriate action of replacing it with another one. Continuing. Sometimes the leakages in cylinders or the gates is hard to locate. This can be because the leakage is too small to be seen or that the hissing sound is too little to be heard. So you can always use a detergent solution to the joints, and then where you see the bubbles pop up, that's where the leak point is at. You also need to make sure that you do not use an oily soap when doing this. And sometimes the flow meter ball does not move, yet the oxygen is flowing. This is generally as a result of a faulty flow meter. So you need to disconnect the flow meter, clean it inside, and reconnect and test it. But if it doesn't change anything, then you can replace the flow meter altogether. And lastly, pressure. Sometimes the pressure gauge does not show any pressure, yet there is oxygen flowing. So this might mean that the pressure gauge is faulty. So you can just replace it with a new pressure gauge. That is all I had for you, and my colleague, good luck, will continue from there.
All right, thank you, Brenda Ruhanga. And once again, welcome everyone. My name is Goodluck Panda, and I'll take you through cylinder refilling. So in this discussion, we'll look at filling station and the filling process. Now, let's start with the filling station. What a filling station is. So basically, this is a specialized facility equipped to safely refill or replenish oxygen cylinders. So this could be at a PSA plant, a VPSA plant, or a portable filling station. Now, let's look at what a filling station should have. Firstly, a filling station should have an oxygen source. So it's obvious you can't fill oxygen if you don't have the source. So that is a must. Another thing that should be there is oxygen compression and filtration system. So this one is there to increase the pressure. So from the source, these compressors are used to compress the oxygen gas to high pressures. As you see in the picture, we have that 3-stage compressor. So it's there just to increase the pressure so that we are able to fill our cylinders at higher pressures. Also, we also have to have a quality control instrument. So these quality control instruments could be oxygen analyzers, pressure gauges. We also have to have cylinder weighing equipment. So this is used to weigh the cylinders that we want to refill. Another thing is safety measures. We should have safety measures in place. We also have to have labeling and documentation. We also need to have a cylinder storage and handling room. And the most important thing is there should be a well-trained personnel to do the refilling. Now, let's proceed by looking at what a filling station should have. Another thing is the filling station should have filling racks or manifold. So filling racks are there to hold the cylinders, and manifold just a collection of hoses, pipes, and connection to the cylinders. And also cylinders, as I've already said, is supposed to have connections, pressure gauges, and safety devices. Let's proceed. Another special consideration should be on the portable oxygen cylinder. As shown on the left of this slide, that is a portable oxygen refilling station, which is sometimes called a home fill. It is basically made up of a multi-stage pump, just like the PSA or another filling station. So this has a capability of pressurizing the gas up to 200 to 2000 psi. Oxygen from the source. So the main source of this station is an oxygen concentrator. So here with me, I have this fill station. I don't know if you can see. So this is a filling station made by Invacare, which is available here. So this is connected to an oxygen concentrator, and you can fill to smaller cylinders. Now let's look at some of the components of this filling station. So we have on the left, we have the refill hose. On the middle, we have oxygen cylinders, as you can see. With this setup or this filling station, you can only fill M2 to M9 cylinders. The higher cylinders, you can't fill them with this portable filling station. And on the far right, that's the whole setup of the refill station and a concentrator. From here, let's look at transportation. Now let's look at the filling process rather. So the filling process has a number of steps. Some of them have been highlighted here. So we have almost 13 steps. Steps 1 is inspection and preparation. So you have to do inspection and you have to prepare before starting refilling. Then you have to check the valve closures. You have to remove all the residual gas before starting refilling. And then you have to weigh your cylinders. Before refilling, you have to do purity and pressure checks. And then you can connect the cylinder to the filling station. Once you start filling the cylinders, you have to continuously monitor the pressure. And after completion, you have to do quality control, leakage testing, documentation, and thereafter you can do visual inspection on the cylinder. Now let's look at these steps in detail. Let's start with steps 1 and 2, which is inspection, preparation, and of course, valve closure check. In this, you have to ensure that the cylinder is in good condition. So this could be checking for issues of rusting or any other physical damage on the cylinder. You can also check the cylinder's pressure lighting if it is conforming with the pressure lighting of the filling station. You can also make sure that safety equipment is available, and also it has been worn by the personnel involved in the filling station. So this safety equipment could be gloves, goggles. You can put on safety boots and of course safety clothing. And also ensure that the cylinder valve is completely closed to avoid any gas leakage. As we know, oxygen is one of the components of the fire triangle. So once there is a leakage, there's high probability of a fire eruption. Now let's look at steps 3 and 4, which is the removal of residual gas and weighing. So before starting refilling a cylinder, it's very important that you remove all the gases from the cylinder. So this will make sure that you have removed all the impurities from the cylinder. So you can connect to an evacuation system, or you can connect this to a venting line. After doing that, you should weigh the cylinder. So this is done to make sure that the weight of the cylinder is equal to the weight that is marked on the hard stamp of the cylinder that you want to fill. So before refilling, make sure that this weight is equal to the weight on the head stamp. Otherwise, if they are not matching, it means you have a need to look into. And on steps 5 and 6, you have to do purity and pressure check. And after doing that, you have to connect to the filling station. So you have to check the purity and pressure of the gas to be used for the filling. So this is the purity of the gas from your source. And then you can connect the cylinder of the filling station if you are sure that you are getting the right purity to be filled in the cylinders. Now let's look at steps 7 and 8, which is beginning to refill the cylinder and pressure monitoring. In this process, what you do is you slowly open the cylinder valves on the gas source. So as shown on the left, you have to slowly open the valves. And while doing this, this is done to avoid rapid pressurization of the cylinders. So relative pressurization will lead to explosion. So to avoid explosion of the cylinders, it's important that the filling is done gradually. And while doing this, you should continuously monitor the pressure on the pressure gauge. So this is to make sure that once the pressure has been reached or the rated pressure has been reached, the filling process should be stopped. Let's look at steps 9 and 10. So in this step, involves completing filling and of course doing quality control. Once the cylinder reaches rated pressure, it's important that we close the valve of the gas source. After closing, we should test or do quality control test on the gas that were filled in our cylinders. There may be impurities that may lead to the decrease in the quality of the gas that are filled in the cylinder. So you want to make sure that you have the quality of the gas that is supposed to be in the cylinders. Now let's look at steps 11, 12, and 13. So these are the last steps after refilling your gas. This involves leakage checking, documentation, and inspection. So after refilling your cylinder, it's good that you do leakage testing. So this should be done. You can do this using non-oil soap solution to check if you have any other leakage. And also, it's also important that you maintain proper records for the filling process. So this could include identification of the cylinder, the gas type that you are filled in the cylinder. In this case, is oxygen, and of course, pressure, the pressure at which you have filled your cylinder. And finally, you can also put any other control data on the filling or on the paper. And finally, it's advisable that you do final visual inspection on the cylinder. From there, let's look at transportation, storage, and safety of oxygen cylinders. Let's start with transportation. So when transporting oxygen, there are a number of factors that we should consider. Some of them are what have been highlighted here. Firstly, you make sure that the cylinders are secured. So you can secure them using the chain, as you can see on the light of the slide. And also, it's also advisable to keep your cylinders upright. So you don't want them to stay horizontally, because cylinders, they easily roll. So rolling may cause accidents. Now let's look at the next considerations, which is using appropriate containers and carriers. As you can see, whenever you are transporting oxygen cylinders, it's important that we put them in the appropriate containers. Shown in the pictures are the cylinder racks, where they safely safeguard the cylinders from falling. Let's look at the other consideration that we should put in place, which is keeping cylinders away from flammable materials. This could be fuel, oil, grease. As I've already said, oxygen is one of the elements of the fire triangle. So its availability necessitates the eruption of a fire. So we don't want to cause fire eruption. So you should keep away from flammable materials. And another consideration is to enforce a no smoking policy in a vehicle that is carrying your oxygen cylinders. And also, you have to carry emergency equipment, such as fire extinguishers. So you should make sure that you have taken with you the light fire extinguisher. So the recommended fire extinguisher for oxygen is the carbon dioxide fire extinguisher, shown in the picture there. So this should be carried with you whenever you are transporting oxygen cylinders. Let's look at the other considerations. So clearly label the vehicle that is carrying oxygen cylinders. As you can see, those are some of the labels that you can put on the vehicle that is carrying oxygen cylinder. This is so important so that you notify the public that you are carrying oxygen, which may easily cause a fire. And another thing is to avoid excessive heating. So excessive heating will increase pressure on the cylinder, and the increasing pressure inside the cylinder increase the chances of explosion. And also, it's also important that we carry contact information for emergency services. So this could be firefighters or the contacts of the hospitals in the areas that you are traveling in. So in case an accident happens, they should be available to help you. Now, let's look at the storage of oxygen cylinders. So whenever we are storing oxygen cylinders, it's important that we have proper ventilation. We should keep them in a secure location. And as already said, it's important that we always keep them in upright position. And of course, they should be securely fastened. So in this case, you can use a chains to securely fasten. And also, it's important to keep oil, grease, or fuel away from this room to avoid eruption of fire. And also, it's so important to implement security measures to avoid unauthorized access to the room that you are keeping the oxygen cylinders. So not everyone should have access to the room. And also, it's important to keep temperature control in the room that you are keeping your cylinders. So we know that temperature will increase pressure, as I've already said, and that will increase the chances of explosion. Now, let's look at some of the safety considerations that we should put in place. So when we are talking about safety of oxygen cylinders, what should come in your mind should be one, the fire triangle, as seen on the slide. We know oxygen is part of the three main components of the fire triangle. Another thing that we should put in consideration is that oxygen cylinders are highly explosive. So to the far right, that's a hospital room. As you can see, that's what remained after an explosion of an oxygen happened. This was in Iraq in 2001, in 2021 rather. So an oxygen cylinder exploded. About 92 people died, with about 110 people injured. So it's so important that we keep safety consideration at high. So these are some of the safety considerations that we should put in place. Firstly, is to avoid oil and grease, as I've already said, or is enforce no smoking, or avoid open flames. Use appropriate regulators. So whenever you are using oxygen cylinders, it's important that you use regulators that is meant for the cylinder that you are using. Trying to do modification in the regulators will increase the chances of leakages and explosion, and that would cause accident in the end. And always check for the damages before use. Make checks before using your cylinders. And also make secure connections on the cylinders, as already said. And whenever transporting, transport them securely. And please don't do unauthorized modification on the cylinders. Don't do any unauthorized modification, because that will have chances of explosion or leakages. And it's so important that we regularly inspect and do maintenance on the cylinders to avoid these uncertainties. Reaching this far, we have exhausted everything that we prepared for you. Remember, in this presentation, we have looked at the overview of the oxygen cylinders. We have also looked at connections, application, and the uses of cylinders, care and maintenance. We also looked at the filling station, storage, transportation, and safety. I now hand over you to our host, Lloyd Kayembe, in case you have questions or comments. Over to you, Lloyd. Thank you. Thank you so much, our engineers. That was a wonderful presentation. So I've just noted in the chat that many of you want to share the slides. So we do share the links to the recording of this talk. So once it has been uploaded to YouTube and Facebook, and from there you will be able to revisit the call. So we will share you the links. So now the floor is open to questions. Feel feel free to raise your hand and type in your question in the chat, and I'll make sure to acknowledge you. So I've noted one question in the chat. So it says, it's asked by Vicky Santalea. He's saying, thanks, good luck. Could you please let me know what is the minimum pressure of booster compressor acceptable? 150 bar or even less? So engineers, that's the question. I think you can take it.
All right, thank you for that question. So these compressors could be 150 bars or higher, depending on the specification of the compressor. Thank you.
I hope that was clear. So there's, I think, a follow-up question in the chat also. So that is, he's asking that, is 130 bar acceptable as well?
According to specification, 137 bars is less. So it's recommended that we use 150 bars or above. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Vic also says that's perfect. That's well explained. So if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or you can type in the chat.
I think there was a hand, Lloyd. I just can't remember who it was. Maybe they can just come off mute.
All right, I didn't notice that hand, but if you have that question, then you can come off mute, then ask the question. Yeah, Hamisi Masa, you can come off mute and ask.
Yes, I did not understand the types of cylinders, types of oxygen cylinders. Kindly, will you kindly revisit that?
Okay, engineers, that's the needs clarification, so you can repeat on that.
Please, sorry, just come again with the question.
I can't join the session late, so I did not understand on that topic of types of cylinders. So I'm requesting if we can revisit on that.
All right,
Yeah.
Hamisi. Okay, so on the types of cylinders, we explained that we have three of them. We have type 1, type 2, and type 3. So these ones are made of different materials, of which type 1 is made of steel or aluminium, while type 2 is made of aluminium, but then it's hook wrapped with a copper fiber. And then lastly, type 3, we're having the cylinder is lined up with a thin aluminium, but then it has a full wrap of carbon composite. So actually, this material composition has an influence on its properties. So for type 1, the one that is just made of steel or aluminium, these ones are heavy in weight. And wow, as we're moving down to type 2, the weight is now getting lighter and lighter to type 3. So with these properties, it is also giving them another characteristic of different pressures at which they can contain the gases at. For example, we're having the type 1, it contains pressures of about 150 bars, type 2, somewhere about 207 bars, and lastly, the type 3 one is having the 300 bars. So that is mostly what we talked about in the types of cylinders. I don't know if that is clear.
Yeah, it's clear. It's very clear. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for that clarification. So I just want to let you know that for those maybe that joined the meeting late, Just know that we have a recording on YouTube and Facebook. So you can revisit the slides, I mean the video on those platforms. So there's another question in the chat. It's by Bernard Santos. He's saying, do we have MRI compatible cylinders? So our engineers, can you try to elaborate on that? Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Lloyd, and thank you, Bernard. Yeah, MR cylinders are available, but these cylinders should be non-ferrous because we know MRI is highly magnetic. So cylinders used with MRI use non-ferrous materials or metals. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good luck. I think that was a very good question and a very good answer. I hope to Bernard that was clear. If it was unclear, then you can ask another follow-up question. All right, if you have any other questions, you can raise your hand or type in the chat. Yeah, so following up that question on MRI compatible cylinders, Bernard is saying, so the cylinders is exactly made of what material? There's another hand raised by Erison Bajinga. So I think Erison, you can come off mute and ask the question. Then Masanja Baluya can ask also after Edison. Thank you. Edison, you can go on and ask the question.
Okay. So I just want to know if cylinder type 1 and type 3, you say type 1 is heavyweight than type 3. So I wonder that type 3, you can put cylinder more than 200 bars. Is it 300 bars than type 1, which is heavy?
All right, so I think Elizabeth will just elaborate more on the type, the amount of pressure that each type can handle. So I think then you can take on the question, engineers. I think Masanja will ask after the
okay.
Engineers.
Can I ask now?
All right, go ahead and ask.
Well, does the person who is entering MRI really need the oxygen use? If so, fine. But if the way the MRI works if it doesn't allow oxygen people, then why should we think of a cylinder that is compliant with the MRI? Well, just thinking loud. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. So our engineers, did you get the questions? I think you can answer them now.
All right. So I just want to come back to Bernard's question, which was asking about the material. So when we were talking about the types of cylinders, we had that material that is made of those cylinders that are made of carbon fibers. So one of the components or material that can be used is to use the carbon fibers. Thank you.
Also, I want to make a comment on the question that who is this one? Okay, the question which was confusing the person who was asking. So here I will just explain again of what really happens to the type of the cylinder and its property. So aluminium and steel, yeah, we're saying that is type 1, and this one ends up making the cylinder to be heavy or heavier. but this heaviness is not characterizing the strength of the material to say with this so much pressure is going to be able to contain the gases at those high pressures. So it is better to understand it in this way to say, okay, we're having type 1 and it's made of steel and aluminum. These ones, they are heavy just from their make, but this heaviness is not characterizing it to be strong. So that is why their pressures of the containment of the gas is lesser than the rest, which is almost 150 bars. Wow, if we can look at type 3, in as much as this material or these cylinders are thin, or maybe the aluminum content and the whole carbon composite is bringing in a different characteristic of lightweight. So what happens is that the carbon composite is the one that strengthens much of the cylinder. So the stronger the cylinder, the higher the pressures that the cylinder can contain. But it's not like the heavy the cylinder, the strong the cylinder can contain the pressures. So that is why I explained to say type 3 cylinder, yeah, it is lighter than the rest of the cylinders, and that it is able to contain the highest pressure of almost up to 300 bars. And I believe with this explanation, you are able to understand what really happens. And also, to add on Massanjar's comment on the MRI and the cylinders, yeah, it is really true that the MRI is so magnetic and everything, but there are other situations whereby you still need to do a gas delivery around the MRI. We need to do a gas delivery around the MRI machines. So still more, these gases will be carried using the cylinders. So for us not to bring in the conflict of bringing any magnetism around, that is why we're also still trying to use material which is non-magnetic. So even the composite itself is non-magnetic. So it is just another soft solution to a problem of any magnetism that can arise along the way as we use the MRI machines. I hope also that will be helpful and it will also help our understanding. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that explanation. I see that you have a lot of questions, but then due to time, I think we will not be able to answer them right now. But then I think this should mark the end of this call. Thank you to our Open O2 engineers for that wonderful presentation, and thank you all for attending this call. Indeed, it has been an educational session. For those that have further questions, you can email us at info@oxygenalliance.org. So make sure that you email us. Thank you all for attending this call. Good day and goodbye. Thank you.